rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, happy holidays, everybody. Welcome to the final Rebel Force Radio show of 2023. We got a great one for you. We really have a super fun, funny episode of Rebel Force Radio here for you to close out the year. We will be back in 2024, of course. First new show of the year will be Friday, January 12th. So circle your calendar. Some of you will get a new calendar for Christmas. First thing you do is you open it up to January and you circle January 12th, that Friday. RFR returns. That way you make sure you don't miss it. Another way to make sure you don't miss it is subscribe to the podcast. I do feel that the more and more people I talk to, they're getting their podcasts on applications like YouTube and things. And yeah, you can subscribe, but to YouTube, but it doesn't do that delivery, that delivery like the podcatchers do. So if you haven't checked out like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, something like that, they make sure that you get each and every episode. So give that a try. We love to have those subscriptions, as we say at the end of each and every show. But incredible episode coming your way in the Cantina. The Napoleon Dynamite brothers. We've got actor John Heder. Of course, folks know him as Napoleon Dynamite from that incredible classic comedy from 2004, as well as movies like Blades of Steel with Will Ferrell. We actually had a pop culture, I believe, segment not that long ago where we were playing a clip from a John Heder romantic comedy. So John's out there, plus his brother Doug. And Doug Heder is the executive producer at WB Games, Warner Brothers Games. And he's worked on things like, Star Wars, Lego, the Skywalker saga, that game. And so both definitely have a lot of chops in the world of creating content and entertainment. But above all, they're huge Star Wars fans. And so we're going to get to hear about them growing up as fans, as brothers, and the whole Heder family. So very fun interview coming up in the Cantina. But as far as news goes, we've got some new stuff from Hayden Christensen. Some interview highlights about him returning to the role of Anakin Skywalker in AHSOKA. So lots ahead here on Rebel Force Radio. If you're new to the program, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of our listening audience. Wow, the final show of 2023. What a great year it's been. Just a wonderful year of Star Wars and Rebel Force Radio and hanging out with you, Swank. Always a good time. But we decided, to up the ante a little bit this time around. It's our annual holiday show. We don't call it a holiday special. All right, we know the pitfalls of that.
For obvious reasons.
But it's our holiday show, our Christmas show. And we always like to invite people over to hang out with us around the Christmas tree and make it a little more special, whether it be reuniting the entire cast of the Clone Wars or hanging out with Anthony Daniels or Ashley Eckstein like last year. This year, we're going to bring in John and Doug Heder. And I'm really looking forward to getting those two guys together as they talk to us about growing up with Star Wars as brothers. And hopefully we can feed off of some of that brotherly chemistry between the two of them. And maybe they'll even get in a fist fight during the show or something.
It always works when you and Billy Mack are on the show.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
I'm expecting that based on my own experiences as an older brother.
All right, well, let's check in with the listener mail. How about that?
Let's do it.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message, Arthur, the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply. Chut, Jimmy, and Jason. This is Robbo from Chicago. I was taking my dogs, who are named Obi and Jin, for a walk, and a question popped in my head, and I'd like to get your guys' answers or opinions. If you were a Jedi Padawan, or if you want a little taste of the dark side, a Sith apprentice, who would you choose, if you could choose, to be your Jedi Master or Sith Master? And follow up, what color lightsaber would you choose? If you guys play this in 2023, thank you guys so much for the past year of content and the RFR community. If you play it in 2024, look forward to a great year of Star Wars. And if you do not play this, then Ichuta.
Ichuta. Okay, so we're answering this both ways. Did I follow this? If we're light side or if we're dark side, or we pick dark side or light side, and then who would be our master and who would be our apprentice?
Right, you have to choose a side because, as you know, once you go down the dark path forever, it will control your destiny.
Yeah, I've never seen it really work out for a dark sider, so no. I can't choose the dark path.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't. So I got to choose the light side, and the light side for my master. My master has got to be. Now, this doesn't have to be canonical, right? I can pick any character. I can mix things up.
Well, let's just see how far you want to push the envelope, and we'll decide then.
Well, okay. For my master,
yeah,
I want Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
I want Luke as my master. So that limits me on my Padawans. I can't. Do I have the whole galaxy to choose from? Because I don't know.
You also choose a Padawan in this scenario.
I know, but
okay. I thought we were just choosing masters, or if we were masters, we would choose a Padawan.
I misunderstood. Okay, I thought we had to choose our master and our apprentice.
I don't. The whole idea of actually choosing a Padawan, I think that's beyond the master's ability, as we see in the Clone Wars movie.
That's right.
Ahsoka gets assigned to Anakin.
That's right. That's right.
Now, that could be wartime Jedi stuff, or it could be a tradition that's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. The Council chooses your Padawan. So I think that selection is moot at this point. Moot, Jason. Moot.
I'm still moot. Yeah. I'm still going with Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker as my Jedi Master.
And what color lightsaber?
What color lightsaber? Green. That's my favorite color lightsaber. So going with green.
Those are great answers because they're not my answers. I was so afraid we were both going to choose the same thing.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
And I have to admit, I'm surprised you're saying Luke because I know you've always been very fond of Ben Kenobi.
I have been. Yeah.
I've heard you and Steve Sansweet talk about your shared love for that character, and
but he's very flawed. He's very flawed, and I don't think that he would be necessarily the master for me. I think that I think we would butt heads. But Luke, I feel like I could get along with, and I could reason with. Luke hasn't been steeped in that Jedi culture in the temple for so long. He understands. He's lived a life. He's lived on both sides of it. And so I really feel like I would need that perspective as opposed to a real doctrinal Jedi master.
Okay. That's a very solid reasoning. My choice for master would have to be Qui-Gon Jinn. It just would have to be because he's outside the box. He's something of a maverick.
It's a great choice.
He does what he thinks is right. He doesn't get bogged down by the rules and everything that holds back the Jedi, which really sort of leads to their ultimate destruction. Was just so many rules blinded them from the realities around them. They were in a bubble. Qui-Gon was out. He was touring the galaxy. He was checking things out. And I could just see us hanging out. We'd have a pretty good relationship together because I would respect him and I would listen to what he has to say. And I would be more on board with what he's teaching than what the Jedi Council expects, like Obi-Wan was in the prequel trilogy. I wouldn't admonish Qui-Gon. I would stand by his side. I would say, I have your back, Qui. Yeah. And, you know, he's kind of a long-haired hippie, so we could go to concerts and stuff. What's that?
Yeah. And that's what you would call him, Qui. And I was just going to say, he's the most hippie-like of all the Jedi Masters. Right. And I'm like, that's perfect. You're going to Dead shows.
Yes.
And
we would tour the galaxy with the Grateful Dead. Yeah. And it would be, we'd be wearing tie-dye robes and stuff. It'd be just wild, you know? And he'd be like, now listen, Jimmy Mac, do not inform the council of this. And I'd be like, are you kidding me? I got your back, dude. We're in this together. What they don't know won't hurt them. Right?
Yeah.
Right, QG? And so, we would hang. We would hang. And I would have a blue lightsaber, blue blade. And I know this for a fact. It's the first lightsaber I ever saw was a blue-bladed lightsaber. And any opportunity I've had to purchase lightsaber memorabilia, I've always chosen a blue blade. I do think Mace Windu, he's pretty cool with that purple blade, but nobody can touch that. That's Mace. I don't want anyone else to have a purple blade.
Were you
for
weirded
as long
out?
as Star Wars continues?
Were you weirded out back in the late 70s when the first two lightsaber toys, be it the Luke Skywalker action figure or the blow-up one, was yellow? Did that weird you out?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
It felt inaccurate to me, but still I rolled with it.
Okay.
I'm like, well, this is effed up, but I'm on board, you know, because we didn't have any other real choices, you know.
What were you going to do?
What were you going to do? So I can't duel my brother without lightsabers. So it was very important. And there we were in the basement with the lights off, with the inflatable yellow blades running around. Hey, we're Jedi, we're Jedi.
I can't imagine those lasting more than one day, especially with two brothers.
It came with a repair kit that, I kid you not, was 2 Band-Aids. I'm like, just Band-Aids. Like, you want me to put a Band-Aid on this thing? All right, whatever. It was the 70s. Amazing. Like I said, we rolled with it.
You rolled with it. Well, Rob, that was a great voicemail. If you've got a voicemail you'd like to leave for us, you can do it 24/7 our voicemail line. That's 708-320-1737 or 708-320-1RFR. Or I think what Rob might have done is just emailed us a voice memo. So you can do that as well. So just show at rebelforceradio.com, record yourself. Actually, it's great audio that way. So just do it that way, and we'll hopefully hear from you, and we'll get you on. But as we were talking about, it's the end of the year. No more flagship Rebel Force Radio weekly podcast for a couple of weeks, but that's not going to stop the Patreon train, if I know Patreon.
Well, there's certainly a lot of content on Patreon right now. And a lot of people who are supporters of us at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio, they tell me it's really hard to keep up with the amount of content we dump throughout the year, just, you know, month by month. So I really want our supporters to take time to get caught up as we take a little break for the next few weeks. So Patreon might be a little more quiet than usual, but there's good news. We have a new show, RFR Q&A, number 188, The Threat of Thrawn. And it's fresh conversation. Myself and Sean Wanty discussing the character of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Sean offers his in-depth analysis of the character, and we discussed Thrawn's reputation, which is something that came up a lot on the after shows. Did he earn that reputation? You know, just if you look at the streaming series alone, you kind of wonder. But we bring in all sort of things like animation, like Star Wars Rebels, novels like Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy. Do you think there's any coincidence that Zahn named the villain Thrawn? Zahn, Thrawn? I don't know.
Never thought of that.
What
now
rhymes
that you
with
mention it.
Well, I mean, that would follow a tradition of Star Wars where George Lucas, Luke. I mean, that's pretty much where I think the character of Luke came from, was George shortening his last name. I've always wanted to be George Luke. Luke. I like Luke. But, so that's fresh. RFR Q&A, number 188, The Threat of Thrawn. Some people are wondering, because usually we accompany RFR Q&As with a video of the same show. But whenever Sean Wanty's on the show, we never do video because Sean doesn't have a camera for that. I bet he does have one. He just doesn't know how to work it. But there's a conspiracy theory here that the reason there's no video for these is because Sean really is George Lucas. I mean, if you listen to some of the things this guy has to say, you might wonder. Because Sean really goes deep, and he leaves no stone unturned when it comes to his analysis of Star Wars. He gets super deep like we like. And so, of course, that's RFR Q&A number 188. There's 187 more of those very Q&As waiting for you at Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Sign up today. You'll have plenty of RFR content to keep you busy until RFR returns. We return in early 2024. So get on board. It's a great community. It just keeps growing and growing, and friendships are forged.
Well, here's something we don't really talk about very much when it comes to Patreon, but it is the gift-giving season. So we know a lot of times people listen to this podcast and they'll be listening with their husband or their wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. And if you're still waiting for that last-minute gift, give them a gift to Patreon. Get them a Patreon subscription to Rebel Force Radio. Or what I do every year, I know people aren't going to get me the thing that I really want the most, so if I can, I get it for myself. So if you've been waiting to join us over on Rebel Force Radio Patreon, just go ahead and do it. Make it a Christmas gift to yourself.
Yeah.
You won't regret it because, as Max says, there's content just overflowing there at Patreon. So
I mean, even our most hardcore supporters have a hard time keeping up. So
yeah.
And you never know. I might find myself growing a little bored over the break. I might float into the studio, and the next thing you know, more content. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we've seen that happen before. We've seen
Oh yeah. It's hard to keep me away. It's hard to keep me away. It's the community. It's wanting to provide to all the people who listen to this show and who've provided so much to us over the years. So be sure to join us for this party. It's patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
Rebel Force Radio, baby!
Although it's been said many times, many ways, may the force be, may the force be, may the force be with you. I love you.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right. Before we get into Hayden Christensen here, we have a quick follow-up to the story we've been following with respect to what is showing up on Disney Plus in the year 2024. A few weeks ago, we reported on a Disney Plus news release that was put out, but it was put out by Disney Plus UK. So this was the European arm of Disney Plus. We hadn't seen anything coming out of Disney Plus in the United States. That is up until a couple of days ago. And the reason I bring it up is because we have a couple of things to mention about this sort of, you might consider it a revision of the news release that was reported earlier. And that is that we've got a second season of Tales of the Jedi that is confirmed now on an official Disney news release. Tales of the Jedi Season 2 is confirmed. That was one that I had forgotten about. I was thinking about Bad Batch Season 3, obviously wrapping up the Bad Batch. I wasn't thinking about Tales of the Jedi. So we also have mentioned Bad Batch Season 3, a Skeleton Crew, and the Acolyte. Still missing from this, despite some inside information we revealed here last week, is Andor. So as for official Disney news and announcements, Andor still appears to be officially off the 2024 calendar. But Jim, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to show up. It just means that they're not ready to announce it. I do want to also mention that despite a lot of these other releases in this announcement having release dates, none of the Star Wars content has any date attached to it, not even the ones that we know of with Acolyte, Bad Batch, Skeleton Crew, etc.
It's just really hard to make assumptions and jump to conclusions based on these lists that get revealed. Even you said it yourself, Jason, the last one of these that we saw a couple of weeks ago didn't even have Tales of the Jedi Season 2 on it. So the accuracy of these, I do not think should be taken into account as gospel. Always in motion, the future is. And with the shuffling of scheduling due to the strikes of last year, both the writer's strike and the actor's strike, things are in motion. Now, the puzzling thing is, why no release dates for any of these Star Wars releases? Well, that's because things keep shifting around. The original plan was Skeleton Crew was to be the next series. But from what we heard, insider information, that Skeleton Crew will likely shift to the summer because there's been post-production issues. Now, Andor, on the other hand, is still expected to arrive late fall/winter 2024. Regardless of what these lists say, you might see Andor even before you see some of these other series that are on the list.
Right.
The only thing that I think is set in stone is the Acolyte, which is, according to our reports, April 24th will be the launch date for Acolyte.
April 24th. So
yeah,
nothing in that winter slot, that January, February, March slot that we...
No, I think we'll see Bad Batch.
Oh, Bad Batch might show up in the winter.
I think so. Okay. I think we'll be hearing about Bad Batch maybe dropping late January, February, maybe as late as March even.
Okay. Well, that would be great. I was just hoping we didn't have to wait until April for something new.
Yeah, that might be the case. I'm fingers crossed Bad Batch will come through for us. But it does appear Acolyte will be the next series, live action, followed by Skeleton Crew, and then Andor. I would not write off Andor for 2024.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll continue to follow that story as information is revealed and announced. But no, I agree with Mac's take there. We're showing you what's officially coming out of the news apparatus there of the company, but we know that that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to see Andor. It just hasn't made it up yet. And that's a good point about the last time this release came out over in the UK. There was no mention of Tales of the Jedi. So,
it's constantly, these pieces are being moved around on the playing board.
Right.
And nothing is set in stone at this point.
Right. All right, well, let's get into it. Hayden Christensen talking to Entertainment Weekly about his return as Anakin Skywalker in AHSOKA. There was some canned interviews of Hayden that we were lucky enough to get, but this is new stuff, and so it's great now that all the strikes are over. We've got new content coming from the creatives and the talent behind these shows. So what's Hayden talking about these days, Jim?
Well, I do always want to point out that Hayden in interview situations is sometimes he doesn't deliver answers with the type of confidence that I'm looking for when I'm listening to Star Wars creatives talk about their projects. Hayden doesn't seem like a guy who really collaborates with the creators on these characters. He's there to serve a role. He's there to facilitate their stories and bring what's on the pages of the script to life. So that limits his ability sometimes to really get under the hood of these characters. But when we're talking about a character like Anakin Skywalker, this is a character that Hayden has lived with for a very long time and does earn a certain degree of ownership of, at least in live action. So he talks a little bit to Entertainment Weekly about what it was like to play a more heroic version of the character. Because, of course, Hayden played... Anytime we saw Anakin Skywalker really in the films, it seemed like it was always a very heavy transitional period for the character, you know?
Right, you only saw him at his worst, it seems like. Worst
Being
moments.
ripped away from his mom.
Right.
Having, going out into space and living with these old hairy Jedi guys and, learning about the Force and all that. So that's the first film. Then the second film... We deal with an angsty Anakin who is feeling the pressures and restraints of his position in life.
A lot of hormones going on. You got some, some of that setting in.
Raging, Jason. Yeah. Raging hormones. You thought those were midichlorians? Oh, no. That's not what's raging, my friend. And then, of course, when we catch up with him in Revenge of the Sith, he's a married man who's letting his arrogance and PTSD really guide him,
and his ambition,
and ambition. Oh yeah, yes, raging ambition, Jason.
Yeah.
So, Hayden seems to enjoy having the opportunity to expose a more heroic Anakin and portray the hero of the Clone Wars, as we see in flashbacks in The World Between Worlds.
I was getting to play versions of this character that I hadn't done before. And, when we meet Anakin in The World Between Worlds, it's sort of me getting to play the totality of kind of Anakin and Darth Vader. There's just an understanding of everything that he's been through. And then, when we go back to the Clone Wars flashback, that was just awesome. That was a version of the character that I was aware of. Like when we were doing the prequels, when we went to go do episode 3, George spoke a lot about, what had happened in between episode 2 and episode 3. And of course that was sort of what Dave Filoni spent a lot of time exploring in the animated world. But, I never really got to play that. And I remember when George was describing, Anakin during the Clone Wars as being this great hero and a great leader. I thought, wow, that's really cool. I wish we could see a little bit of that. And of course we do a little bit. I think sort of beginning of episode 3, you get sort of a taste of it, but then very quickly he becomes consumed with all of the sort of the inner conflict again. And then when I went and was preparing for Obi-Wan, I went and I watched the Clone Wars and I got to see that version of Anakin. And I was very taken with it. And I thought, man, that would be really exciting to get to do that in live action. When Dave told me that we were going to get to do that, it was a real gift. I was just, felt very privileged to get to do it.
Boy, oh boy. I wrote this down. The totality of Vader that he says he got to play in The World Between Worlds. It was the two halves of the same man coming together. And I until he said it that way, I don't even think on the after shows I was thinking of it in that way. But I really love that they are finally in that moment in The World Between Worlds harmoniously able to coexist. The Anakin side and the Vader side. So I dig that. I think that's really cool. And I do feel that Hayden has gotten a lot more comfortable answering questions like this. If you go back, back to when he was coming out and talking about Kenobi, you compare that to him talking about Ahsoka. I think these answers, I agree with you, Jim, that, he doesn't come at it, used a great word, in a collaborative way. And that doesn't mean that Hayden isn't a collaborative person, but Anthony Daniels, for example, the ownership he has of C-3PO, he exerts that onto the storytellers. Whereas you get a sense that with Hayden, he wants to learn from guys like Filoni. He wants to take in their direction and then put that out as the product that he's producing for them in his performance. So just a very different, a different perspective, but a good one for sure.
And the character himself has a different perspective because you're looking at an Anakin Skywalker through Ahsoka's eyes, who has done everything he has ever done. So he can look back on certain elements of his entire life and almost come off as reflective on it. And the one part I'm thinking of is specifically when Ahsoka starts inferring that, she's the Darth Vader transformation. She says something about what you become. I'm afraid of what you become. And Anakin, and this was, I really enjoyed this little bit of acting from Hayden in the show. He goes, is that what this is all about? Come on, it's like.
You're bringing that up again?
You're rubbing my nose in that.
Right, yeah.
And that is such a different approach to the character of Anakin Skywalker than anyone has ever seen before. And then Hayden, of course, portraying the role, being fueled by the knowledge of the Clone Wars, which is something he didn't have. During the prequel era, he was reliant on George Lucas information alone. There was no blanks to fill in with animation for the character. Now Hayden has that at his disposal too. And so I find it really interesting about how he had done the research for Kenobi, and that only primed him for the role in Ahsoka, much more so than, in my opinion, than the role he played in Kenobi.
Right.
I think that, his hard work watching those cartoons finally paid off by the time the Ahsoka show went in front of cameras. And he talks a little bit about whether or not his acting and his portrayal of Anakin was truly inspired by how the Clone Wars portrayed the character.
I'm playing a character that I played 20 years ago. And so obviously there's a need for continuity, but this is, also a time in his life that we haven't seen in live action. So there's a little bit of freedom there. But of course, it's very well described in the animated, work that Dave did with Matt Lanter. And I don't know how much it informed the decisions I was making, but certainly I watched a lot of it, so probably through some version of osmosis or something, I took some of that, but it was just sort of an interesting exercise in my craft of going back and really getting to, I wasn't wanting to do an impersonation of, the work that I had done before, but I wanted to sort of approach it from the same place. And of course, I'm, a little older now, and so you have, a different sort of take on things, but my approach was very much the same. And I loved what they presented in the Clone Wars and in the animated show. So, I was excited to get to bring that to live action. And then of course, establishing the dynamic between Anakin and Ahsoka was the stakes were high because, there were a lot of people that were already invested in that relationship. And this was the first time that we were getting to see it in live action.
Boy, he said it. I mean, not only is there a responsibility for him and pressure for him to bring something new to this character, as he said, the character's in a different place. It's something he hadn't portrayed before. But that relationship, portraying the relationship, was huge. The relationship and the chemistry that those two characters established through animation is, in a lot of ways, the very heart of the Clone Wars series. So not only does he have to bring something new to Vader, he has to establish or try to establish this instant connection with this other actor and this other character. I think he did a marvelous job, personally.
It's kind of funny how the tables turn. Matt Lanter was inspired by the Hayden Christensen take on Anakin Skywalker when Clone Wars went into production a couple years after the prequels wrapped. And now here we are, a couple years after Clone Wars finally wrapped with season 7, and Hayden Christensen is finding inspiration for the character from Matt Lanter's take on it. So, you know, what goes around comes around. As Darth Vader said, the circle is now complete between Matt and Hayden.
I had fun with that very thing when that episode aired, and I sent Matt a text and said, "Oh, how the tables have turned."
Oh, you did?
I did. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm sure that hit the nail on the head for him as well.
Yeah.
You, Jason, have said many times, you've expressed your just how impressed you are with Hayden Christensen and his skill wielding a lightsaber.
Yeah.
You famously said that he is the Errol Flynn of the lightsaber.
I think he is.
Which we know those comments have reached Hayden Christensen, which I think is hilarious. And he loved it. But Hayden talks about using the lightsaber and what it takes to swing one around.
Any chance I get to swing a lightsaber is an awesome opportunity. And, you know, when I was reading the script for the first time of episode 5, I was like a giddy little boy. I was like, oh, I'm going to get to do all this awesome action. And, you know, I couldn't sit down. I was pacing around the room just reading the script. I remember put it down halfway through and I messaged Dave and I was just thanking him profusely. You know, it's a lot of fun to get to do the lightsaber stuff. And it's some of my favorite stuff. And there's a lot of training that goes into that. And so you spend a decent amount of time with your scene partner and learning the fights. And it's a really, you know, important process, you know, not just to being able to do the fights, but to just developing a rapport with the person that you're working with. Because you're swinging a lightsaber at them. And there's an element of trust that needs to get established, and you develop a rhythm and you find your timing. So it's all, you know, really helpful.
How many times do you think they connect on accident? You get like knuckles wrapped, you get your knee slapped.
More often than you probably can imagine. You know, we showed that video last week that Ariana Greenblatt shared on her socials that was in a rehearsal with her and Hayden squaring off with the sabers. And you could see it's like dance choreography. Everyone has to be in the right place at the right moment to pull off the moves. And it takes a tremendous amount of trust with one another to be able to pull it off so convincingly the way they did. And Hayden was addressing that in that clip we just heard, which I think was painfully obvious in the not painfully obvious, just very obvious in the Ariana clip. So you and me should get the sabers out in the backyard someday and try to.
Well, it's not fair because you've had real training by the great Nick Gillard. I mean,
right.
It's an unfair fight. I'm much more OT style, which just feels a little bit more made up on the fly, less choreographed, and you've got, you know, the real master.
Yeah, you know, Huang says that I am the Jedi with the least amount of lightsaber skills of all time. And Nick Gillard felt the same way. Nick was getting, I think he was getting a little like, what am I doing wasting my time with this guy? We're standing in the lobby of the convention center. I'm sweating profusely. I just... And the guy, you know, they partnered me up with a guy, you can tell, who took lightsaber dueling very seriously. Like it was his whole life, like to be there with Nick Gillard. I mean, this guy's whole life was leading up to that moment, and he got stuck with a lame partner like me who just, I mean, I sucked so bad. There's footage. There is footage of me.
Oh,
I don't know whatever.
There is?
I don't know whatever happened to it. My buddy Mark shot it all. You know, Mark from Shot Glass Digital back in the day.
Yeah.
He shot it all, and I never saw a frame of that stuff. I doubt he still has it. It was so long
might have been during the digital camera era before like cell phones were really doing the shooting.
Possibly. Or he just didn't want me to see the footage of myself completely crapping out on the lightsaber training. But I picked up a few things here and there that I could probably pass on to you. And then we could go in the backyard and start swinging plastic tubes at each other. That'd be a hoot.
Yeah.
That'll be a hoot.
Yeah.
I'll leave the dog poop in the backyard too, so we can like, look out for the mines, you know. It'll be
I bet it really will be like Clone Wars.
So I have one last clip from Hayden.
Yeah.
You know, he talks about Dave Filoni a lot in these clips, but also he talks about George Lucas too, and it's kind of different making Star Wars without good old GL there in the director's chair. So let's hear what Hayden has to say about making Star Wars without George Lucas.
At first, I felt like I was cheating on him a little bit, but no, you know, it's a different time for Star Wars now, and I think it's, you know, really exciting that we now have this period where there are other storytellers coming in and sort of giving, you know, their take on the universe, but you know, of course, it all goes back to the maker, and George Lucas is very much in sort of the front of everyone's mind when we're making a decision, and you know, we want to make stuff that he would be happy with for sure.
Yeah, that's a sentiment, you know, of all the things that I'm grateful for, all the reasons I'm grateful for Dave Filoni being in the position he's in is because of his devotion and respect and of George Lucas, the honoring of George's legacy. Jim, last week we talked about the Blu-ray, the ultra disc, ultra high def Blu-ray versions of Mandalorian that are out, seasons 1 and 2, and I've reviewed the bonus features. We've talked about them a little bit off the air. There is one in particular. Well, there's a couple that are really great. They're not very long, I will say that. So if you're running out, if money's tight in the holidays and you're like, I don't know if I can swing this, and it's just eating at you. You know, these are 5 minutes, maybe at most like 12, 15 minutes with some of them. These aren't real in-depth documentaries, but they are good, and they are truly never before seen. But there's one in particular that is Remnants of the Empire, and it's a short one. It's about 5-6 minutes, and it is all George love. I mean, it's Doug Chiang, it's Dave Filoni, it's Jon Favreau. They're dropping the name George Lucas consistently throughout the piece. Make no mistake, those guys, Dave and John, had George foremost on their mind. And then, of course, there's clips of George on the set of The Mandalorian. That is a big standout. And if you're hoping to see George's legacy and his name being talked about, that's the piece. There's also, just as an aside, there's another one on season 2 called Designing the New Republic. That's a really good one because they really get into sort of the thought process. Doug Chiang's in there a lot. Also, Terpsik, the late, I can't think of her first name. Is it Susan?
Shauna
Terpsik, who passed away, sadly. She was the costume designer on much of the Disney Plus series. But really talking about how they came up with the look of the New Republic, the uniforms. Matt Lanter, who we just heard Hayden Christensen talking about, you know, in that season 1 episode where he's playing the New Republic officer, and they show they have Shauna there with the costume that Matt wore, and she's talking about how she wanted the weave in the materials of that uniform to be the same as the Imperial officers in the original trilogy. So a lot of detail and a lot of attention to that detail that we just wouldn't know otherwise. So they're definitely trying to make that connection. They talk about, the prop master there talks about how the flight suits are just like the flight suits in the original trilogy, but they're all new. They're all shiny, bright orange, you know, and Doug Chiang's is talking about, you know, the newer look of the X-Wing. So a lot of thought went into that, and it's all talked about on some of those bonus features. But anyway, the point is that George's legacy, I think, and his name looms large over the set of any Filoni Favreau production. It seems pretty obvious.
As it should.
Yes.
I mean, to me, Star Wars is nothing without its legacy. I only feel that way maybe because I'm super nostalgic because I've been there since the beginning. And
right.
Star Wars meant so much to me as an 8-year-old when that film hit the theaters. It was life-changing. And to a degree which it's hard to describe, but there was nothing as cool. Everything was so dumbed down in the 70s, and then Star Wars appears. It was like with all of this mind-blowing special effects and a straightforward story that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and characters that you just fell in love with, and a coolness factor. You just, wow, it blew your mind. And then, of course, all the merch and the toys and everything. It just, that's the legacy of Star Wars. And I don't ever want to see that getting forgotten or pushed aside or neglected. But, you're so right, because the stuff that was the Jedi Council, we were all chatting last night about Jimmy Mack never knew that there was a 1977 animated Batman series called The New Batman Adventures. And so I must have
the Jedi Council, we get in this
day. It just didn't stick with me.
We get on a roll talking about, Super Friends and Batman and stuff. And you're so right when you talk about things. As much as I loved those shows, but being dumbed down, children's entertainment in the 70s, late 70s, very, very dumbed down. Then you look at what was happening in cinema. Everything was gritty and depressing, and no heroes. Everybody was an anti-hero. And so Star Wars comes along and it levels up the conversation with kids and starts to get the kids to ask the big questions about their place in the world and their destiny and leaving the family farm and finding their Death Star. But then it also creates this clarity for the adult audience, the moviegoers, that there is good, there is evil, and there are, I hate to say it, absolutes in some ways, that there are these big conflicts that you need to pick up your lightsaber, pick up your blaster, and participate in. So it was absolutely culturally monumental from so many angles, both the entertainment for children and the entertainment for adults.
Great to hear from Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
I want to hear more. I want to see more from him. Of course, the series with Hayden and Ariana Greenblatt playing a young AHSOKA, Clone Wars. Give us a live-action Clone Wars series. I mean, you guys already shot the pilot for it, and it was a mad success. I'm giving it the green light. Run it into a series right now. Let's rush it into production. Let's go. Let's go.
Jimmy Mac Iger has already set the premiere date. He's got it on the calendar.
McIger. Jimmy McIger. You've heard of MacGyver. Move aside. Here comes McIger. And I'm calling all the shots for Disney. Oh, we can't figure out what's next. Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, is Andor going to be the show? Forget about all of that. Clone Wars, AHSOKA, Anakin. Let's get going. Come on. Put them in the volume. Don't even put them in wardrobe. I don't even care. You don't even have to put them in wardrobe. Just let Filoni scribble down some words on index cards. I can read those. I love it. We'll have after shows. It'll be great.
It'll be great. All right. You know what else is going to be great? Going in the cantina with our very special guests, John and Doug Heder.
Absolutely. It's a conversation that's been a long time in the making. So stick around for Doug and John Heder in the cantina.
Napoleon, give me some of your tots.
No, go find your own.
Come on, give me some of your tots.
No, I'm freaking starved. I didn't get to eat anything today. Oh, God. Gross. Freaking idiot.
It's a very merry Star Wars Christmas. A very merry Star Wars Christmas. A very merry Star Wars Christmas. May the Force be with you.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master?
For a drink.
Sorry about the mess. You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
All right, well, as promised, joining us in the cantina, two very, very special guests. They're brothers. We've got Doug and John Heder. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being on Rebel Force Radio, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. Yeah.
Great to see the both of you.
Happy Life Day.
You know, yeah, right. If you're of the persuasion and you celebrate. But I wanted, Doug, we were talking a little bit off air. You've got a long history with not just Rebel Force Radio, but our other podcasts that we had. And I don't know that we've ever had an opportunity to talk to so we know what your pedigree is as a Star Wars fan, but I don't know that we've ever had a chance to talk to two brothers growing up in the same household in the 70s as Star Wars fans. What was that like? You come from a big family. Are you all Star Wars fans? Were just some of you Star Wars fans? We know about you, Doug.
Oh,
yeah. John, tell us.
I'll give that quick because Doug could go forever. So there's like 5 brothers. There's 6 of us in all. We have the one sister who's at the top, and then it was just 5 brothers underneath. And we were just kind of our own entity. And we got into kind of everything. And Doug is the oldest brother. So he was the quote unquote ringleader of the troop. And so really he kind of set the terms for everything we liked. Luckily, we all did get into it. Was there did we get into it because our older brother was into it? Yeah, there's definitely things, Led Zeppelin, some of the music we got into is because he kind of paved the way and started it. But Star Wars, I would say, was kind of the king of the fandom of all right, we're all into it. Doug was the one buying the radio drama on the 20 CD set, where we're listening to that, Christmas Eve night, huddled up together. He's the one who's collecting the toys, but we were all, we all enjoyed that kind of camaraderie and that brothership of okay, we're doing this. We would take turns. I'm going to jump right into it, Doug. When we started talking about okay, our history with Star Wars and our fandom, you can probably guess the main nerdiest thing that we did as Star Wars fans, correct?
Well, which memory are you talking about? What was
There's
that?
too many. There's too many to choose
The main
from.
one was when we were getting ready for the special editions. Do you remember what we did?
Oh my
going back
gosh.
to 97.
Okay,
Come on,
yeah,
Doug.
97. Well, I
'Cause
mean,
we
there
were-
was. Oh yeah, of course. Are you kidding me? Okay, yeah. Well, so you're jumping way forward. So there's
okay, you want to go back
for
to
me,
the beginning.
Well, for me, there's different phases of my, enthusiasm
okay.
for Star Wars. There's the early years, the 70s and 80s, right? And then there's kind of the high school years, the 90s. And that, those are two very different periods of being a fan for me, particularly. I don't know, if the same is true. John, you're 2 years younger than me. So that doesn't sound like a lot, but in childhood days, that kind of felt like a lot. And it felt like, you guys were maybe not as involved at the very beginning, but then we quickly kind of grouped up and got involved together. But okay, so the memory you're talking about, this was definitely in the high school and college years. This would have been 1993.
No.
Well, that's when it started. That's when hold on.
Are you talking about?
Let's make sure we're talking about the same memory here. So in 93, I'm a freshman at college, right? I'm off starting my college life, and I meet this guy in my dorm. He's like my hall monitor or whatever. I mean, I don't remember his name. I wish I could remember the guy. But I mean, this guy was, and this is pre-internet, pre-everything. This guy was just the source of all underground knowledge. He would come to us every week and be like, guys, you want to know what I heard? I heard George Lucas already has 3 new scripts written and for the prequel movies. And I mean, he had bootleg versions of hack scripts that he would share with us. I mean, and he would talk about the lava fight scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, these were rumors we'd heard about since we were kids. I mean, we all had this idea. We knew that there was this big showdown between Obi-Wan and Anakin. that would lead up to their betrayal of each other, their loss of friendship that was only hinted at in the original movie. But I mean, the idea that this could actually be a thing out there was just blowing our minds. I mean, 20 years since the last movies, that's an eternity for someone at that age, So we thought like the new Star Wars movies were never going to come.
And this was your college RA that was giving you all of this information.
Yes.
Somehow he knew.
Yeah, legit source.
And not only did he have a script, but he had a date. He's like, dude, it's going to be 97. I guarantee that movie's coming out in 97. I've got it from reliable sources. And so that I got on the internet. I'm sure that's what, his thing was, right? This led me to my future endeavor to hunt down a Star Trek podcast, right? Because that was the ultimate thing you do on the internet. Or chat room or whatever, So anyway, I come home from college at the end of that first semester and I go to my brothers and I go, guys, it's going to happen. There's going to be a new Star Wars movie. It's going to go back in time. It's going to tell all these origin stories of these characters, how Darth Vader came to be. And I've got a date. It's going to be May of 1997 or something like that. And so I brought with me, I assume this is what you're talking about, right, John? Are we on the same memory
so.
here?
Well, yeah, there might be some.
So I brought with me home from school the
almanac.
Hold on, I've got it. Yes, I've got it right here in my collection.
By the looks of it, there's a very impressive library behind him.
Oh yes.
I see a lot of spines with the Star Wars logo.
More importantly, I want to know where you got this Darth Vader Yule log.
Yes, well, that's my Christmas Yule log there in the background.
Well, where did you find that? That's amazing.
It's on the internet, John.
Yeah.
You guys already know about this.
Try using social media for once, John. Come on.
No, thank you.
So anyway, here's the book, right? The Star Wars universe. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to get this square.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. By Bill Slavicsek.
Yeah. Yes. This was the one. I brought this home. And as you know, every page is filled with a new Star Wars term, something from the universe, right? Every single page. I mean, there are thousands of entries in here.
Yep.
And I told my brothers, we need to make a countdown chain to the release of the new Star Wars movies. And we're going to, on every chain, we're going to have a new Star Wars word, and we're going to learn that word every day we rip off a chain. And we did this, we said, and it's like 3 or 4 years from now. So we got to do like 1,000 chain links out of construction paper and tape this thing together and string it around the bedroom. And they had to, I was going back to school. I couldn't take it to my dorm. They had to keep it in their room and keep it going. So this is
your younger brothers had to keep this alive.
Yes. Oh no.
This was my twin brother. So I have a twin brother, and him and I shared a room. So we sat down, and it took us a number of days to create this link, this chain link, where all these little pieces of paper wrote in. I mean, I remember it so well. And you're writing a word that we're like, ooh, I wonder what that means. I wonder what that means. Oh, that one everybody knows. Creating all this link and just this gigantic chain, and we hung it in our room, and it kind of wrapped around our ceiling a few times because it had to cover hundreds of days. Hundreds of days. So we did that, but this is where I thought, Doug, it was leading up to what I believed was the special editions release, which we know is what was released in 97.
That's what
I don't remember thinking that was. But was that the word on the street that the prequels were going to come out in 97?
Hey, my RA was the source, man. According to my RA.
Who happened to be Harry Knowles is who his RA was. Remember Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool News?
Yeah.
Hey, look, I got the book. I got the book right here.
Max got it.
Yeah, the guide to the Star Wars universe. This book, it was so profoundly important to me. I even remember where I bought it. Crown Books in Pasadena, California.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know that store. Yeah, that's our.
It's in the mall.
Yeah.
And I was out there working radio, and that's when this stuff started to appear all of a sudden. I used to go to the Fantastic Store in Hollywood, and that's where I first saw new Star Wars comic books and stuff all around this same era, 92, 93.
Yeah. Well,
John, I wonder if I can.
I've got to add one little piece of just one last little detail to this story. So the only reason I even gave this guy credibility is that so I was a freshman at school and I was just early in the film program there. That's what I wanted to study and become, was a filmmaker. And so one of the guest lecturers they had come to our school was Gerald Mullen. Gerald Mullen at the time was Steven Spielberg's producing partner. And they were just about to release Schindler's List. It hadn't come out in theaters yet, but he was promoting it. He was advertising it. And he comes to the school and did this whole presentation, had this Q&A session with the students. And in the Q&A session, classic college students, here's this guy, no connection to George Lucas and all, but this kid stands up in the Q&A line and just goes, Mr. Mullen, what do you know about the future release of any new Star Wars movies? I mean, Steven, and Steven knows George, so of course you've got to know.
Right. And you have to have heard.
And actually, Jerry answered the question. He goes, well, I know for a fact that George has some new scripts and he's working on it. So I don't know when it's going to come out, but he's working on it.
Wow.
So, I mean, I believed what my RA told me. That was the only reason I came home with surety and confidence. I told my brothers, we got to get on this chain.
Young people listening to this is what we had to do before the internet was such a thing.
It is true. And the only thing we had to go by
session out there.
Yes.
The only thing we had to go by were books like this. And so your family was getting quizzed on or you just put them through a very intense educational period. So if I grabbed a term out of this book, John, do you think you'd still be able to identify what I'm talking about?
Hell no.
Hell no.
No, I mean,
try. Let's do it. Let's do it. Just a quick
yeah,
try.
do it.
All right.
This is going to be embarrassing.
Let's see. You never know.
There's some really obscure stuff in here, so I'm just going to open
Just
and
flip
point.
It. Yeah, just random.
All right, here it is. Lantern of Sacred Light.
Oh, gosh. I mean,
I don't know what that is. The Lantern of Sacred Light is an Ewok holy item. Duh.
Ooh, is that from the...
That's not from the holiday special.
No, it's from the Ewok Adventure.
Oh, the Ewok Adventure.
Right?
It's got to be, right?
There's the candle, that little Sindel. See, I'm a hardcore fan of different
Wait a minute. Now you're starting to
had the
come
little
alive here, John.
She's gifted the little candle, and that little fire fairy comes out of it and protects them, and it never goes out. She's always holding around. Remember, it comes alive and everything. I'll bet you that's what it is.
That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut right there.
And our judges are saying that you got it right, John, even though you didn't necessarily pull out the definition according to the book. You put it in context with the on-screen universe. So, yeah, you get that one.
I'm pretty damn impressed by that.
You quiz me on the Ewok Adventures, I'll nail them all.
I mean, I wasn't expecting, expert level knowledge on the made-for-TV Ewok films.
Spoken like a guy born in 1977. We had Return of the Jedi, and we had the Ewok movies and Droids and Ewoks cartoons. We didn't have the benefit of the other two movies.
And I'm going to say it right here and now. They hold up.
They're on Disney Plus, so
they're great.
Wilford Brimley never had a finer job of acting.
No,
that's true. Teak is the best.
Yeah, diabetes in Star Wars.
So now you're actually going back now to what I consider more of our childhood, fan era of Star Wars. That. I mean, it really was. I mean, I was born in 1975, so yes, I was around for the first release, but I mean, I was 2 years old, so I don't really remember 1977 release. But in 1980, when Empire hit the screens, they were doing a rerun of Star Wars, and that's what I remember. I mean, in fact, that is probably the earliest movie experience I remember going to. My parents took me to a double feature in Southern California of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and I can sit there. I mean, still remember the images of the snow, Hoth base, and the trash compactor on the Death Star, and just the trench run. I mean, everything, all that, it kind of blurred together as a kid of 5 years old. But over the next 3 years, it fleshed out and became a real memory. And then, 80, by the time Return of the Jedi came on board, I mean, that was it. We were all nuts for it. And
I think that was really that was the movie for me. Obviously, I
sure.
related to the most because 83, I would have been like 5 years old. So I was the oldest when that came out, but our fandom, like any kid of the 80s, lived through the toys. We were gaga for the toys. I remember getting the Ewok Village so specifically on a Christmas morning, and then Yoda's Dagobah little play set where you had the little foam mud that Luke could go through the quicksand.
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, I remember that so well. And the Ewok Village those are my favorite toys easily.
Well, so in probably Christmas of like 81 or 82, I'm imagining that's when I got, my first introduction to the toys. My parents, I woke up Christmas morning. That was the Christmas you never forget. There sitting with a bow on it was the Millennium Falcon with all the figures already set up and posed inside of it.
Ooh.
And
Really?
oh my gosh. Oh yeah.
Wow.
My parents had like set it all up on the, we had this thing where the Santa whatever Santa gave you was already sitting on the couch when you came into the room, right? It wasn't wrapped up under the Christmas tree. It was there on the couch just waiting for you. And then
right out of the elves' factory.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a 70s thing because my childhood was like that too, where we didn't find the presents under the tree from Santa. They were just like barfed out all over the sofa. So it cut out the middleman, that's for sure.
Yeah, the flashiest stuff was sitting right there, like
yeah. It was shock and awe presentation,
Yeah.
Well, I only found out years and years later that my parents had actually just picked all that stuff up secondhand at a garage sale. All of it. Every last bit of it. 100% that
you were playing with another child's dreams.
Doug, we have some younger listeners of this podcast. You need to just watch what you're saying. Like, there's no secondhand. The elves built it all.
You're right.
That's true.
But then, but then Christmas 83, that's when we would have gotten the Ewok Village. And that was, a big one for me as well, that Ewok Village. Because
that was the only place that I ever had. I was so later in life, I would learn that there was a Death Star playset. I didn't know that because they never released it after the initial, despite all the other playsets and vehicles getting subsequent re-releases with the new film packaging and all that. Never got that. So, that Ewok Village was literally hours every day for me, just having all kinds of adventures and fun.
Yeah, and this predates you, John, but between the years of, 80 and 83, you guys were still toddling around in diapers at that point. But maybe not. But I would go across the street to my friend who had that Death Star playset. And that was my only access to it, was what other kids in the neighborhood had that I didn't have. And so I'd go over to the streets, we'd play for hours. And when we didn't have any one set between all of us collectively, we would build them. Literally, we would spend hours. We would collect old refrigerator boxes and orange boxes. It sounds so like Bush League now, but we would literally collect cardboard boxes and cut them into multi-storied bases to recreate the Death Star. And then we'd take all our figures and we'd connect them with styrofoam cups and toilet paper rolls and, paper roll tubes. And we would just build these elaborate bases with that was our Death Star because we didn't have
what we did. A white bedspread was Hoth, a tan bedspread or a tan couch was Tatooine. And that's the way it was, and we liked it.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. Now, if you are really missing the Ewok Village playset, they did re-release that set years later as Kevin Costner's Robin Hood.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Complete with tree canopies. Where was that in 83?
Well,
couldn't we have foliage?
It was the exact same mold, and they added leaves to the trees, which we did not get with Return of the Jedi. It was hilarious. It was the worst rebranding of a toy set I'd ever seen. And we called it out when we saw it. Yeah,
I don't think it ended there either.
Did he do it again?
The character Little John from Robin Hood
was just Darth Vader, right?
It was Jabba the Hutt.
No, it was Chewbacca.
No, they used the Gamorrean guard's body.
No, come on.
They did.
I swear to God, the same mold.
They absolutely did. Here's the.
Oh my gosh!
Right here is
there it is.
Yeah, this is the Ewok Village redone.
Have you never seen this? Have you never seen this, John?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this isn't the final version. This was something that they did up for the catalogs, probably the Sears catalog in 89? No, 90, I think. Because the real one didn't have that much detail. Look at all that airbrushing on this thing.
Oh my gosh.
That looks awesome.
Yeah, but I got to find the Gamorrean guard.
That's just like it.
Yeah.
John, it's the exact mold. I mean, literally.
Yeah, no, I
mold.
remember that so well. It's crazy. You're looking at it now, you're like, that's so dinky. Oh my gosh. But as a kid, you thought it was an entire forest. And you're like, no, it's 3 trees.
Yeah.
And it made me so mad. What of the 3 trees? Remember, so one tree was the trapdoor elevator. You could put a guy into the top and he'd fall down to the bottom. The other tree was, I think, just an empty hut. You could put like 1 or 2 characters inside the little hut. Then the third, because there were only 3 trees, it was a triangle. The third tree was straight up solid. Yeah. It was not hollow. You couldn't. I mean, I sat there as a kid trying to figure out there's got to be some tool I can use to just cut out that doorway and put in a little like floor in there so I can have a second open hut. Like, why would they not? Why seal that off? Why give me only 1 open hut when you've got a 3rd tree here? That would just irritate me to no end as a kid.
Well, we've talked to some of those original Kenner designers. We can connect you, Doug, and you can get the answer to that question. But here's the Friar Tuck Gamorrean guard.
Oh my gosh.
It's Friar Tuck, not Little John. Yeah.
It is. Friar Tuck makes more sense. Little John would be Bob.
Yeah, you got to look underneath old Friar Tuck's garments and you'll find a very familiar pair of chubby knees.
Holy cow. Dude, that's incredible. Even better is that Friar Tuck never even wore battle gear at all in the Prince of Thieves movie. Is that John Rice Davies' head?
It kind of looks like him. I think it was Mike McShane was Friar Tuck in the Prince.
What they should have done is they should have then repurposed this toy. They should have used that as the mold for the Gimli toy for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it does. You know what? You're right. It actually does look a heck of a lot more like John Rice Davies.
It looks like John Rice Davies. That's hilarious.
Well, Kenner.
They probably took the heads from the old Raiders of the Lost Ark toys, the Sala figure, and just leftover heads and stuck that on the Gamorrean guard because that was the same scale, right? They were 3 3/4.
Yeah. And they recycled a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, they sure did.
The Ewok battle wagon that came back as a Robin Hood toy. And I think there was a catapult or something that did as well. But
did they sneak that glider in somehow?
The glider didn't make it, no, but
because I could see, Will Scarlet just like flying over Sherwood Forest, going dropping bombs and stuff.
Christian Slater, cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
I got you. I'm like, see you, Robin of Locksley, as he glides away.
Oh my gosh. So I'm blown away by the fact that all this stuff was set up there under the tree. Well, excuse me, on the sofa. And then how did you guys organize your play as kids? Did you have certain characters that only you could be? You didn't let the younger brothers, like Luke was off limits for anybody other than you, Doug, maybe.
I mean, well, there you go. Luke Skywalker, that was probably the only character I can think of that may have been like, it was an unspoken rule that I'm the older brother, I'm Luke. That's it. And, and so everything else was fair game, I think.
I don't think we played together a lot with our Star Wars toys. It was more like our groups. Like you were kind of you were the older one. So you were more of the collector and maybe built stuff. But then my twin and I, we got everything at the same time, everything we shared. So we would play together. And then and around that time, I don't think the younger brothers were getting Star Wars toys. They probably didn't care about it as much. But as they grew older, they would just, inherit the old toys and old toys. But Doug was always the real hardcore, like, no, I'm going to decide who gets what toy. You get that. I mean, he was just directing constantly what went in whose room. The Millennium Falcon always stays in my room. There's there's a great story. Okay, so Doug knows which story is coming up next, and sometimes I think he may deny remembering the story, but this carried on through our teen years, our middle school years, and everything. So I believe the way it went is Doug went off to, because I want to say college, because he hadn't fully matured yet as a young man. But he was gone away.
I was still in my youth.
It was like school, or when you went and worked at Disney World for like that summer, but you were gone for a short stint before you really grew up. And you came home, and for whatever reason, my twin and I had borrowed, or maybe it was we had borrowed, I say borrow, the Millennium Falcon. And I don't remember why it was in our closet. For some reason, we had used it, and we had, I mean, at that point, I was like probably a senior in high school. So it wasn't like I wasn't sitting there playing with it, but we might have used it in a video that we made or something. But you
careful what details you give here, John. Careful what details you give here.
Well, you came back and you found out that we had touched your stuff, especially the Millennium Falcon. And you were still in that kind of mode. And you grabbed me. You came into my closet. You grabbed me by the throat. You pushed me up against a wall. I know I've told you this story before, and I think Doug has a lot of shame in this, but like he grabbed me by the throat. He's just
I'm totally proud of it. Great moment of my life.
I don't know if he was just grilling me on it, or if you were just so upset. Like, why is this in here? Why did you take it? Or this or that. I can't remember all the details. I just remember thinking, look at you. How old are you? And look, what are you doing? What have we become? And then he went away for a few more years. And he finally grew, and he came home, and he was like Friar Tuck and everything. It was just, peace be unto you, my brethren. Our toys are everyone's toys.
Wow.
So, John, you were into filmmaking as a kid, and you would sometimes use Star Wars action figures or ships in a homemade movie?
That's what I'm trying to remember. I think we made a lot of videos. I'm going to be honest. The main toy that we use in a lot of our videos, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys. That was the other big toy collection we collected a lot. I don't remember making a lot of videos with the Star Wars toys, so I must have used it in a diorama, or I don't remember. I felt like I might have used it for something, or to just show like a friend to like, dude, check this out. This is an old classic. And I don't remember, but I don't have any evidence of videos using Star Wars toys. Doug, did you use any? Doug used to make videos a lot too, but I don't know if we did a lot of Star Wars videos.
Yeah, no, Star Wars never really became part of like the filmmaking portion of our childhood. It was just before, sort of home video cameras were a big thing. This was early 80s. Video recorders didn't really come until the late 80s, where they were more common and around, and Dad brought his first one home. So we were definitely doing a lot of Ninja Turtles in the early 90s. And I was doing a lot of Legos movies.
Yeah, Legos.
Yeah, that was what I started doing, was Lego movies at that point. Yeah.
Doug did a lot of Gumby videos. In his early years.
Wow. Gumby
Adventures.
Gumby. Yeah, that was, I was being hip. I was going back in time to something that used to be cool.
Retro.
And, making it. Yeah, exactly.
Do you have your Davy and Goliath claymation characters too? That was like, I feel like that was the same era.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, we were very religious, but we drew the line at religious toys. We were like, no. We're not pretending Darth Vader is Satan and Luke is Christ. We kind of drew a line that way. There's a time and place. Leave that stuff at church.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure Mom and Dad, amongst others, tried a couple times to introduce some things, and we're like, no. That makes my faith and my fantasy into the same thing.
We were very discerning at a young age.
Yeah.
Understandable. So now, John.
Sorry. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Doug was like your main source for Star Wars. And was he also the guy who introduced filmmaking to you, or you said as brothers, you guys were both interested in that? Is that just something that was running through your family?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, again, Doug did start the trend of a lot of these things. He was the older one, so he had access to like my dad's video cameras. So he made videos first. And certainly we we did videos. I mean, really our first real creative outlet was skits and sketches that we would put on for Christmas shows or for parent birthdays and kids' birthdays. We would just do our own little sketches and skits.
Live action, not
nothing
not film stuff. Just we'd put on plays, we'd put on puppet shows. We do, little
puppet shows. We did a lot of puppet shows.
Yeah.
We had my dad did a homemade puppet theater. So we had all these puppets and we do lots of puppet shows. We were big into the Muppets. And then like through middle school and into high school, Doug, I think you slowed down making videos in high school, right? You didn't make a lot.
I didn't make a ton in high school. I made definitely the most from between like 6th and probably 9th grade. Although high school is when I did all my Lego videos. So I kind of stopped going from live action to more, although Gumby was live action.
Was
don't
early.
Forget. That was early. It was hands, fingers holding the characters on screen. It wasn't stop motion. It wasn't anything fancy.
No.
Lego got a little more sophisticated and started getting to some stop motion things. But my brother,
but it was my twin and I who really kind of picked up that mantle, then really ran with it because all throughout high school, we made lots of videos. We made stop motion animation with our turtle toys. We did full on live action with special effects and everything. So that's when we were like, we want to do this.
Yeah, you guys did a lot more in high school. But I mean, that kind of makes sense. Again, being just 2 years, I was just older enough to kind of, break the ground there and introduce you guys to things like, suddenly once Dad could trust me with the camera, then the camera was left out more often. Then Dan and John would come along and pick it up. And they would, a lot of the things they would do, and at least in the early days, is they'd kind of take ideas that I had done and then kind of try to improve upon them. Like, oh, well, Doug did a little simple rudimentary stop motion. Can we do that a little better? Can we take that to the next level and make it look better? Or, an animation or, whatever it was, an action special effect or whatever. So there was a lot of that. And then they kind of grew into their own thing for sure.
And then that eventually led you, John, into landing into acting as a profession and Napoleon Dynamite. So how did that all come about?
Well, the funny thing, so I was just going to explain, Doug was really, I think in high school, your main draw was theater. You were Doug was the star of at least the two main, what was it, your junior and your senior year? You were the lead actor, singer in the school plays. So Doug was definitely heading up, and even before that, we did this education, kids theater camp throughout middle school.
Every summer,
and Doug was
it was a summer camp.
Doug was always
Doug,
the lead.
I got to hear it. What were the two roles in your junior and senior year?
Oh,
do you remember?
Emil DeBeck, of course, Emil DeBeck in South Pacific, my junior year.
That's a good one. Uh-huh.
And then sadly I forget his name, but the love interest of the main girl from Meet Me in St. Louis. He was kind of a schlub in the. Yeah, he's a forgettable character, but he was the main guy.
Is that the Mickey Rooney character from the movie?
No way. No way.
No, it wasn't Mickey Rooney. It's again, he's kind of vanilla.
Yeah.
Vanilla,
okay. All right.
White bread.
But and even before that, in 8th grade, Doug was in this, like I said, this educational theater camp that we did, and he was Grandpa Joe and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He was Fagin and Oliver, and my brother and I were just in the same play. We were Oompa Loompas. That gives you an idea. All right, Doug's clearly the star, and he's acting and doing all that stuff. So all his focus was drama. My twin and I were we're doing videos, we're making movies, and we're going to do stuff behind the camera. And I didn't have that draw to the front of the limelight. However, in these videos, you need actors, and we're like, well, okay, as high schoolers, it's not like you're getting other people, really. You're just doing it yourself. So, of course, that was my real taste, was stepping outside of myself and learning to be goofy in front of the camera, not really thinking it was going to go anywhere. And then it wasn't until college that both Doug and I were in the film program at the same college. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of the same thing, but I was like, okay, I'm studying everything. I'm going to try everything. When you're in that film track, you have to take acting classes. You have to take production classes. You take screenwriting classes. So you're kind of taking a little bit of everything. And when I took the acting class, I was like, my eyes were very much opened at that moment. I was like, oh, I totally get this. I love this. I saw bits and pieces of this doing a little bit of theater when I was younger and seeing it a little bit through my older brother, older sister. They had done plays. So, but it wasn't until college that I started trying the acting thing, but not really thinking, oh, this is going to take off. I just really enjoy it. And people started, just friends, other film students would cast me in their short films, and they just kept casting me in. And so I kept auditioning and auditioning, or just, hey, let's do this. So that's really kind of how it started for me.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Napoleon Dynamite, and the rest is history. Is Napoleon a Star Wars fan? I know it's not revealed in the film, but I think, John, you take a certain ownership of the role, and you could speak on Napoleon's behalf.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, he's definitely a fan of Star Wars.
That seems like it goes without say, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I remember thinking about this.
I mean, Idaho in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of goes without saying. If you've got lightsabers in the Force and the epic journey of our hero, Napoleon can latch on to that. For sure. Yeah.
But Napoleon would have thought he was better than the Force, right? He would have been, oh, whatever. Force, I can run circles around the Force, right? He would have had it would kind of been child's play for him.
He was just like, Napoleon had daydreams about, like, look, they said it right there in the opening scroll, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it's not like it's another world. It happened, and it happened a long time ago. What if Luke's lightsaber got shot into space, and through the momentum of inertia, it just continues through the galaxies, lands on Earth. Napoleon is going to be hanging out with one of his friends one day and comes across and unearths a lightsaber sitting there on planet Earth. Yeah, that's totally realistic. He's going to pull out, is like, somehow he's going to learn the Force on his own. He wasn't born with any midichlorian count or anything like that. He's like, I'm going to will the Force into me.
He'll crack the code.
And he'll crack the code.
He'll develop amazing Jedi skills.
He'll do it on his own. I feel like that's his destiny.
Yes. Yes. Every saga has a beginning. And then also, beyond Napoleon Dynamite, you've had a great career. You appeared in a film called Funny Thing About Love, and the character you played was he was engaged to get married, and he was nervous about being attached to somebody else for the rest of his life, who believed the prequels were greater than the original trilogy. But you guys found common ground.
My character is married, and he's giving advice to a guy who's in love with his sister. And he was trying to give advice like, look, I know you guys differ, but let me give you an example. My wife and I, before we got married, we had a serious disagreement. She liked the prequels. I did not. And so he gives this little diatribe about, like, there's no way I thought it could work out, but then I realized I'm never going to be this lucky again. What am I doing? Yes, of course I'll get married to her. And he's like, yeah, you work through your differences, something as important as that. And I remember, like, I loved that line in the script because he kind of has this geekdom about his character throughout. There's a couple other moments in the film, but I was like, this is 100% me. This is me and my brothers. When we were talking about it, I was like, no. It's original all the way. Anybody who likes the prequels, idiots, and then that transferred slowly over to the new movies. Anyways, moving on. I started having more love for the prequels once the new ones came out.
Yes,
and that's a common theme that we hear. Well, while we're talking about the prequels here, real quick, let's continue your saga, the Heder Brothers saga as Star Wars fans. So we know about the special editions in 97 and the countdown chain that you had. What about when and you weren't getting this from your RA? What about when there was real news about the Star Wars prequels finally coming, and you guys were older then, in college, 99, 2002, 2005? Tell us about what was going on with you then and how you
right
reacted.
away. For me, the bummer was I was on an LDS mission in Japan in 97 to 99. So,
oh my gosh,
all the fervor, all the excitement about the prequels coming out, I missed. I never saw any of it because I remember seeing one clip on a television in Japan, and I was kind of like, it's a weird thing because I wasn't as, I don't want to say let down, but it wasn't as built up for me. So by the time I got home, it already come out. I think, I don't remember my brothers, I had to get this info from my brothers, and they were like, yeah, okay. I mean, they were excited, like, yeah, let's definitely go see it. But I was just more on I was on a different high. I was like in Japan doing my own thing. So it didn't have the same, and maybe that was for the better, maybe because
you were not connected, you were plugged into that hype machine that everyone else was going into episode 1. So maybe your experience was a little bit, different than what everybody else was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was a dark, those 2 years were kind of this blank void in my film history. Cause I used to like measure everything chronological, like in my life by films. Oh, I knew when that film came out. Oh, I know when that film came out. But then during those 2 years in Japan, it's just kind of a voided blip. And I'm like, oh yeah, that came out then. Or I don't know much about that movie. Probably came out in the late 90s. I missed that. So yeah, by that time, but a funny thing is when the third movie, when oh my gosh, not Attack of the Clones.
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. When Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005, correct?
Mm-hmm.
In 2005.
Yeah.
So I was this just shows the level of nerddom still. I still wonder if I regret this. I was at a premiere. I had just shot Benchwarmers, and that was getting ready to come out theaters. And so I was in with the Adam Sandler crew. And so he invited me to the premiere for The Longest Yard. I don't know if you remember that film of his.
Oh yeah.
That remake, that Burt Reynolds remake. So I went to that premiere, but we had already made plans. Like my brothers who were all living in LA, or at least two of my brothers are living in LA, were like, all right, this is the opening night of Revenge of the Sith. We're going to go see this, right? I was like, I've got this premiere, you guys. They're like, dude, you can just go to the beginning, go see the movie. Then you can skip out on the party. I was like, yeah, I probably do that. And my wife at the time was like, shouldn't you stick around and like get to know some of these people or schmooze with some of these people? And I was like, no, it's fine. Like we got Star Wars to go watch. So I totally just ditched Adam Sandler in this party to go see it. And still to this day, I was like, oh, I probably should have stuck around because I know.
Was it worth it, John? I got to ask, because here you are, you're in the industry and an established, you're in a bona fide hit at this point as these films are coming out. Napoleon Dynamite comes out in 2004. So this is opening up some doors for you. Were you ever you ever trying to use your connections to get a little Star Wars info or get to a premiere or, something like that? I mean, we let's face it, we're only human. We're all going to do that at some point, given the opportunity.
I had no idea the keys I had and how to use them. I was just
no private tour of the ranch and the archives.
I was paying full matinee, not even matinee, full nighttime price for to go see Revenge of the Sith when it came out. I think honestly, I wasn't like, it's the third one, but I've already seen the first two. I already kind of know what track this is on. I'm like, I wasn't. I at that point I was all in on Harry Potter. I was like, get me to the Harry Potter premiere. I want to go see that. You know, because that was just what was happening at that time, right at the beginning.
Right.
So, but I certainly was still all in. Like, okay, if they're making more Star Wars stuff, but right then, I mean, the climate at that time for Star Wars was not looking great. There was no like talk about other movies. Everybody's like, "Ooh, George Lucas." I'm not sure. You know.
Yeah. You know, I'd go on a limb here and say that, you know, you kind of had your own sort of Star Wars moment with Napoleon Dynamite in the sense that I'm guessing that you guys didn't know exactly what you had when you were making that movie, much like George really didn't know what he had. And certainly the crew had no clue. They had no idea what this thing was. So you're making Napoleon Dynamite, and is that right to assume that you weren't thinking we're going to make a movie that is going to go from just being a cult classic to just a classic American comedy?
I think it's right on, because, you know, in all our watching all the makings of and the behind the scenes of Star Wars, and, you know, over the decades, we all hear about that and know about, you know, the first one, and really George Lucas and his crew just not really having any idea, like, okay, we're doing it. We got a budget. It's a very small budget. Yeah, it's the same story for us. We had very small budget. We're making this movie that we're making for ourselves. And I think that was such an important thing that I could see in both ways. George was making that movie for himself. He wasn't thinking, okay, about the audience. There was no audience yet. This is his baby, his story that he created. He's making it for himself. And Jared Hess, you know, who wrote and directed the Napoleon, and him and I were like, no, we're making this movie for ourselves because we don't know who the audience is. We're like guys our age, people who are film students, people who are into indie films, maybe.
Right.
We love it, and we're making this, but you're right. We no idea until you start to see it start to collect some speed and some momentum. And every time a new person saw it, oh my gosh, we love it. And then another person. And you're waiting around until, you know, I mean, it came out in theaters in summer of 2004, and it's kind of small, but it's got a lot of buzz and everything. Mm-hmm. And by the time it was Christmas of 2004, it was just coming out on DVD and everybody was buying it. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy insane. And so, yeah, I mean, I like to think,
like Star Wars, it's multi-generational. And those of us that experienced it firsthand, I can speak for myself, loved showing it to my kids. I've got a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old, and it was awesome. We had Jeremy Kuhn on the show a little while ago, and I was able to tell him how fun it was just to be able to put on a movie with your kids and not have to worry, and you both are laughing at the same jokes and the same bits, and everyone's having a good time, and they think they're seeing something that's cool and hip, and it really holds up to kids today.
Yeah,
too.
I like anything. Yeah, and especially that's how it is. Yeah, with Star Wars, with all those kind of like timeless movies. You can call it classic, but timeless. At any age, you can show them those first 3 Star Wars movies and just feel the same emotions. You can pop it in anytime. Christmas, especially being a favorite time to watch these films. People tell me all the time, oh, it's become a Christmas favorite of ours watching Napoleon. I'm like, really? Christmas? But I was like, no, it's the movies that you love to watch together as a family.
Yes,
right. And so it's great to be kind of, you know, in that lexicon.
You know, John, I know it was 20 years ago, but is there any potential for a sequel?
Oh boy, if I had a nickel for every time.
You'd have a nickel? You'd have
every time
nickel?
I was that. I'd be as rich as Lucas and as good looking as Spielberg. Look, I always say, as long as I'm alive, I suppose there's potential. And the rest of the cast, no, there's no plans, but I always tell people I don't think the book of Napoleon is fully closed. I think, while we're still breathing and there's still such a strong love for it, who knows what could come of it, whether it's a sequel or TV show or another animated series. I'm not sure. Who knows?
We know Peter Billingsley did A Christmas Story Christmas 39 years later, a sequel to A Christmas Story. So,
jeez.
Yeah.
Always in motion, the future is. Always in motion. And Doug, you actually got to work on a Star Wars project. Can you talk about that at all?
Well, I was one of the executive producers on the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga game that came out in last year, 2022.
Madly popular.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that was our biggest launch to date for up to that point in time at Warner Brothers Games. So it was a very successful game for us. It was a lot of years in the making, probably the biggest Lego game that ever had been attempted, and obviously a lot of love from the folks at TT Games, who were, the creative force behind this game, and, great team there, very talented team who've obviously done a lot of Lego Star Wars games over the years. And this was sort of their, what do you call it? Piece de resistance, right? Bring it all together under one banner and do all 9 films and really just pack everything in there. Yeah, it was great.
Were you there for any of the recording sessions with the actors?
That all happened before I was able to. I actually came onto the project. I sort of inherited that project coming into it, kind of in the last couple of years of its wind up. I mean, this was a 4+ year long development cycle. It was a really big game, and I came in about halfway through that process. So that had already all been done. The voice recording. So no, I didn't get a chance there. But unfortunately.
Well, we look forward to more of those games, because I can tell you that Skywalker Saga was very popular with fans and popular in my own house with my kids. So,
how many Lego Star Wars games exist? How have they done?
Well, I mean, the original Lego Star Wars was the prequel trilogy. And that was basically part 1. Then they did a sequel that they called the original trilogy. So in 2 different games, you had the first 3 films and you had the original 3 films. Then later they came out with the complete saga, which combined those 2 games into one and gave you the 6 games 6 movies in one game experience. And then when Force Awakens came out, we did a Force Awakens game that was just Force Awakens. And then that got then it was the Skywalker Saga. That was all 9 films. And there was, I think, some extra. There was a Clone Wars one that they did. I'm probably forgetting 1 or 2. They've done quite a few, yeah.
Well, how cool is it that you went from shooting Lego films to actually working on Lego video games?
Yeah, it's been a blast. I mean, it was literally a dream come true. I remember, when I was in high school, this would have been like, 1990. So I was about 15 years old. I went to live abroad with my dad, who had been temporarily stationed in Germany during the original Gulf War down in Kuwait, in that area, if you remember, right? Operation Desert Storm. Mm-hmm. And so he was part of the Army Reserve. He got sent over to Germany for 6 months to go backfill, certain, roles in the military that had been sent down to the front lines, right down in the Gulf, in the Persian Gulf. So he gets over to Germany and invites me, and this is my sophomore year of high school. He says, "Hey, do you want to come out and spend the semester with me? I've got an empty apartment. I've got, I'm working a 9-to-5 job. You go to school. We can transfer you over here to the military operated school. So it'll be English, speaking kids. It'll be, you just get your schoolwork done. Then we can go travel and see Europe together for 4 or 5 months." So I jumped on the opportunity, went out there. And during that time, I caught wind of, this little unknown place called Legoland in Denmark, which was, from Germany, was just a hop, skip, and a jump off the Autobahn, right? And so I got this bee in my bonnet. It's like, holy cow, this might be a once in a lifetime experience. Why don't we, my dad, as we got towards the end of the semester of school there, says, okay, we've traveled Europe. We've seen all these great places. For our final trip, you get to pick one place to go. Like, where in all of Europe do you want to go? Let's go there and spend the weekend. I just looked at him and I pulled out this newspaper, clipping that I'd found. I was like, Dad, and I showed him this picture of Lego Mount Rushmore. And I'm like, this is where I want to go. Take me to Legoland. He's like, what have I done?
I want to go to Legoland, Dad.
Yeah, seriously. And so we did. We did a weekend trip. We drove up north. We, did the whole tour. We got up to Billund, Denmark. I saw with my own eyes the actual Lego factory where Lego bricks were built. And, couldn't go inside at that point in time. There were no tours available, but the park was right next door. And we, it was this tiny park. It was like, we grew up with this place called Enchanted Forest. It was probably smaller, square footage wise than that park. It was this just somebody's garden. They had put some Lego displays in, right? But I was enthralled. And that was 1990. In 2015, I got to go back to Denmark on my first Lego assignment and Lego game assignment, right? And got to go back to and go inside the factory.
Oh, wow.
It was like this full circle thing. It was just this incredible opportunity to go inside.
And seeing them all being made and everything.
Yeah, but it just like this whole full circle thing, I went as this fan as a kid, and then I got to go back there and actually meet the people and work on the thing and, kind of be behind the scenes and get the VIP tour. And that was really special. And, get to work on the games has been a lot of fun and learn a lot about that process. So it's been a blast. Yeah.
And you owe it all to Star Wars.
I absolutely. Yeah. Hey,
that's how we bring it back.
In all seriousness, I would, dare I say, would Lego still be making bricks if they hadn't have licensed Star Wars? Lego was near bankruptcy in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after they got onto this idea of licensing, and Star Wars was the first one, that they got themselves out of bankruptcy and turned themselves into the biggest toy brand in the world. And so Star Wars and Lego is a huge.
Yeah. As a kid, I never thought we would get licensed properties in Lego. And it's just been amazing ever since. Guys, before we let you go, we do have one special thing that we'd like to do. If you're willing to do this, we've never had brothers do this before. So this is really going to be like brother versus brother, but it's a little thing that and Doug, you may know about the Yoda Questionnaire.
Oh, absolutely. You bet.
Yeah. So we have the Yoda Questionnaire.
He's going to kill me.
No. This is the beauty of it, John. The beauty of it is that it's not trivia. It's much deeper than trivia.
Oh,
there are no wrong answers, but there are answers that are more right than others. So, if you're ready for it, we'll bring in Richard Cheese to do the honors.
Please do.
Yes, please.
The Yoda Questionnaire.
Yeah, that's the real Richard Cheese, ladies and gentlemen. The Yoda Questionnaire. The Yoda Questionnaire comes, of course, from Jedi Master Yoda, sent over to us via fax. Well, the technology isn't really plentiful there on Dagobah, as you can imagine. Can't get Wi-Fi with all those trees.
The Yoda
fax is pretty good.
Fax?
Plus, with Yoda's claw hands, it's really hard for him to text.
Well, he doesn't have to. You can just force press the buttons.
That's true.
Wow. He doesn't really need dexterity at all, does he? Just
no.
That's abusing the Force. You can't use your connection to the Force for things like that. That's too mundane.
You'd never wipe yourself again, would you, with your own hands if you could use the Force? Ever. Like, how gross if you could just use the Force.
Oh, my God. Wow. That truly is an abuse of the Force. Wow. Jedi's wiping. I've never. I hope
Jedi's not wiping. That's what it is.
That's a worse scenario. Jedi's not wiping.
Yeah. I hope at least they go from front to back rather than back to front. Okay. Getting back to the Yoda Questionnaire. First question, and we'll have Doug go first because he's more familiar with this, John, and then you can follow.
Okay.
But Doug, first question: who or what? When we say what, we have to be inclusive here. Who or what is your favorite Star Wars character?
Luke Skywalker.
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. There'll never be a second. There'll never be a competitor to Luke. He's the hero. He's the everyman. He's who I imagined myself as a kid and wanted to be. And, as cliche as that is, I mean, that is why Star Wars is, because of what George put into that character.
All right. I mean, this is important though, because you're shooing away Han Solo. You know, I mean, does Luke Skywalker make you want to watch Star Wars more than Darth Vader? These are the questions you have to ask yourself when you're answering the Yoda Questionnaire.
I watch Star Wars to follow Luke's journey. That's the journey I'm on. I'm not on Darth's side. There was no Darth Vader journey. It was Luke's journey. And, now we can talk about Anakin's journey as a separate thing, right? On another. But yeah, Luke's it for me, for sure.
All right. John, you're next. Who or what is your favorite Star Wars character?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, look, this is true brother fashion, though, because Luke held a very strong presence in our house. I truly, he was the magic. I mean, I might have to agree. I mean, and this is not just... No, yeah, I was all in on Luke. I love, I completely agree in that, it's easy to say, Vader is a really cool character, cool bad guy, but still the hero's journey, I'm all in on that, the hero's journey concept and following that and watching that growth.
Now hold on just a little bit, John. I have to push back a little bit on this because we all had assigned Star Wars avatars in our family. And who was your avatar? Who are you?
Are you quizzing me? Because I don't know.
Yes. Whose lightsaber do you have in your collection?
Oh, well, okay. You're talking about Obi-Wan.
Yeah. We all bought, FX
You know
lightsabers.
what? You're right. Yeah. Well, since you already did Luke, I love Luke. Yeah. But I do love Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan has always been... The potential of Obi-Wan has also been one of my favorite things. I think I love Ewan McGregor. I love him I love the casting. I think what they could have done with him could have been way better. But yeah, the concept of Obi-Wan I always really liked. And then there's all something about Admiral Akbar that just, rang true with me as well.
Yes, I see him as the Winston Churchill of the Star Wars
I was
universe.
all about the effects, too. His puppetry was just top notch. I just loved his puppetry, really.
Wow. All right. Well, I
don't think anyone's ever mentioned Admiral Akbar.
No,
for this.
That would have been a first.
That's a good one.
Yeah. When you'd go to Star Tours in the original Disneyland, I mean, to see a Mon Calamari up in the cockpit, watching over the bay as you're walk in queue.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
wait, Doug,
see those characters in real life.
Who were the other brothers' avatars then?
Well, Dan was Vader.
Of course he was.
Yes.
He was the dick of the family.
Is this your twin, John?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wow.
and Dan and I clashed most often as kids. I mean, we were always head to head with each other. And so I was Luke and he was Vader.
I was the peacemaker, so I was definitely a little bit more on the Anakin side. You're right.
Yeah. And then Adam, our younger brother Adam, was Mace Windu because he's bald.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also thinks of himself as really, really smart, probably more than he is.
Yeah, Mace Windu is insufferable in my opinion.
Yeah.
So wait, then what about Matthew?
Seriously? You don't remember this?
No.
Darth Maul. He was Darth Maul.
Oh, yeah.
Matthew was Darth Maul.
Did your sister participate in this?
No.
Well, she never bought a saber, so she doesn't really get to come into the club. We all bought lightsabers to match our alter egos in the Star Wars universe.
You pull the ladder of the clubhouse up when your sister comes around.
And I was very committed.
She never came knocking, okay? She was like, okay, whatever.
I had both Luke's lightsabers. That was how committed I was to my character. I had Anakin's lightsaber and I had Luke's green lightsaber from Jedi. So, that's the one that frustrates me the most from the sequels, that they brought back the blue one, but he never got to show his green one. I'm sick of that. Yeah,
we could go on.
Thank God for the Mandalorian.
Yes, thank God for the Mandalorian. Jedi Luke for days. All right, fellas, we're going to go to the dark side here, and I'm going to ask you who or what is your least favorite Star Wars characters. Yes, you can mention that one if you want. It's a very popular answer. I'm sure you can guess. But who or what is your least favorite Star Wars character?
You want to start on this one, John? Mine's easy.
There's so many to choose from.
It better not be Sindel.
Sindel? No, I wouldn't touch.
No,
I would have. I go
the
by
Ewok adventures are sacred for us. That was anyway.
Yeah,
that was your sequel trilogy.
I didn't see that coming.
I go to the new movies. I just go to new movies and think, all right, just take your pick from.
Yeah, I know, right? But let's go back to you pick.
Okay, so you're right. I almost don't. So if I had to go and just talk an original trilogy, who's my least favorite? I would, oh man, who?
Did you guys catch the dynamic 40 years later? Doug is still directing John's fandom as he's coaching him on the Yoda Questionnaire.
You already have, but if we're looking at the originals, I mean, I don't know. I love them all. I think maybe something out of I thought, man, Doug, you go first. Let me think.
Okay.
You already have your answer.
I didn't even have to think about this. CG Jabba. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking that when you said that.
Is my least favorite. I hate him so much.
Specific.
Yes.
I'm blown away. This is another first here on the Yoda Questionnaire.
Yeah.
Jabba the Hutt. I mean, so think about it. Where Return of the Jedi sits for us. I mean, across the 3 original films, right? Like, we were really young. We certainly caught those. But I mean, we were there in the theater on opening day for Return of the Jedi. And the reveal of Jabba was just larger than life. And Puppet Jabba, to this day, I don't think has ever been touched as far as the realism, the movement, the artistry, the craftsmanship that went into that character. He's so believable, and he's so frightening as a character because you just feel like he's going to swallow you any second. And they could never get – CG Jabba turns him into a cartoon. First in the special edition, it was novel to see the extra scene, but that they've left that in the cut is just frustrating. It ruins the pace of the story, and when they're trying to escape from Tatooine, it just kills the pace. The scene's terrible. There's a reason why it got cut. It should have stayed on the cutting room floor. Give it as a DVD bonus scene. Great, whatever.
CG Jabba not making.
And then when they had him come back in the prequels. Oh my gosh, CG Jabba and Phantom Menace. He didn't look any better.
Yeah.
They still haven't nailed it. I'm going to put, I agree with you.
Well, he
Doug.
moves around like he's all lost 300 pounds or something. He just slips around. Dude, that guy was immobile. He was so fat and so just enormous.
He was glutton. He was gluttony personified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And they ruined that character when they turned him into CG. Yeah.
Prior to the special edition, anytime they showed a hut in motion via a comic book or a novel or something, they would always be floating around on sleds.
Yes.
That, with repulsor lifts that kept them up off the ground and would just move around. But then in the special edition, they decided to make him sort of slither like a slug. And boy, that first attempt at Jabba from 1997 that appeared in the special edition, they've since gone back and tried to fix that with the Phantom Menace Jabba, but that first attempt was just dreadful. I mean, just dreadful. So I'm glad they at least went back and put in the Jabba from the Phantom Menace over that first attempt because that was just pathetic. And it looked like Jabba lost about 300 pounds.
I think John has an answer for his least favorite character.
This is going to probably get some anger from people. And I have to explain a little bit. Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi, but more specifically, her makeup in Return of the Jedi is
what, the smoky eye? The smoky eye makeup?
It's
no, you mean
Moon of Endor.
It's
Moon of Endor. Leia. So
really,
but it's also kind of Leia in general, and it's okay because it's a weird love-hate thing. I love Leia, spunky and just really kind of crazy in the first one. Second one, you're falling in love with her. You see what Luke sees. I mean, not Luke, Han sees. Whatever.
Well, and Luke.
But by the third, yeah, it's true. By the third movie, she's a little watered down. She's not as fun. And really, once
She's
you
not
get to the
feisty
moon,
at all.
no, and when you hit the moon of Endor, she's just got like, I don't know,
Mom
like
vibes.
weird mom makeup on, and I was just like, what's going on? Like every scene with her and Wicket was boring, and she was boring. But that said, one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars is Luke and her in the Ewok village when he's telling her the truth about them being brother and sister. It's still one of the best cinematic moments I love, and she's part of that. So,
Okay. So it's complicated between you and Leia, is what you're saying.
Complicated. Yeah.
All right.
It's so
Just-
funny. Yeah.
Something I've always noticed about Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi is there's one scene in particular where Han is looking at the Millennium Falcon when they're on board the Imperial shuttle getting ready to take off out of the Rebel fleet. And Han's looking at the Falcon saying, I don't know if I'm ever going to see her again. He's nervous. And Leia comes over and puts her hand on his shoulder to comfort him. And you can clearly see Carrie Fisher's extra long pinky nail, which she used for recreational purposes. And I always consider that to be canon. That's canon.
That's canon.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for that. Look at all that rouge.
There's the makeup, though. There's the makeup you're talking about, John. She doesn't look like they kind of
like she's in the Force. She needs to look like she blends in, not like Snow White and this 500 dwarfs, hairy dwarfs.
Hairy dwarves. Okay, I've got another question here for you. What job would you most like to have in the Star Wars universe? So let's pretend the Star Wars universe is real. There's a lot of different things you could choose from. We see a lot of vocations in Star Wars. So, Doug, what job would you most like to have?
I mean, probably want to be a X-wing pilot, I would guess. I mean, that's just like it's the equivalent to our jet fighters today, right? Like they're just too cool for school. They're up there on the front line. They're in the trench, literally, of the Death Star. I mean,
truly in the trenches.
Rogue Squadron, man. I mean, those guys were the bomb, and they go off and have their own adventures afterwards. And yeah. I think,
did you see the big Rogue Squadron movie directed by Patty Jenkins that came out last week?
It was fantastic. I loved that movie. Yeah. I'm so glad they finally got it out.
Oh, man. I thought you'd like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I wonder what your old RA thinks about that. I wonder if he's still telling tales about the Patty Jenkins movie. John, how about you? The job in the Star Wars universe that you would most like to have?
Probably, well, I love exploration. I love exploration more than anything. So I feel like in that sense, probably just a bounty hunter. I mean, getting to travel and go to the ends of the galaxy and all these different places. You get to hang out with some cool dark characters, blend in. I think just anything that would get me out and about the most.
Oh, I like that. So bounty hunting for you. Hunting for you. All right, one final question, and I'm gonna phrase it a little differently for each of you because it is specific, I think, here in this case. But we'll start with Doug. Doug, if there was another Star Wars movie to be made, and we know there'll be many made, hopefully, and you were executive producer of it, and George Lucas was the director and also executive producer because it's George Lucas. Come on. So you're co-executive producers. What would you like for him to say to you when the film wrapped production?
I appreciate that you're trying to modify this for my current position, but remember, I was the star before John.
I was going to say that.
All right, so we want to go back to high school. We want to go back to high school, Doug. As Atticus Finch.
Wait. You have to remember, Jimmy, I know I shared this with you earlier, but I want you to know I made it 3 tiers in. to the original casting of Anakin Skywalker for episode 2. I was in the running. I was in the running.
You wait till the end of the interview to say that, Doug? I said, where the hell were you guys during the prequels? You didn't say I was auditioning. Talk about burying the lead here.
So
okay.
Thank you. You know what?
All right. You know what? Let's rephrase it. You're in the damn movie this time.
This is for.
Well, wait a second. Hold on. Put the questionnaire aside. I want to hear this. I want to hear your story about auditioning and how far did you get? Did you actually get as far as where you'd sit down and meet with George Lucas or any of the other producers or anything?
I'll tell you. I'll make it quick because I know we're getting to the end here. But so this was, Phantom Menace had just come out. Obviously, lifelong Star Wars fan. Me and my, couple of my best friends had already kind of finished up school, had gone down and moved to LA, and were starting to, get their foot in the door in the biz, right? In the Hollywood world. I was still in college, and in 2000, how did it go? I just reached out to my buddy and said, dude, I just heard on the news that there's still an open casting call for Anakin. We know they're going to age him up. It's not going to be Jake Lloyd in the sequel. It's going to be adult Anakin or young adult Anakin. I mean, I'm right on the border. I might be too old already for this, but if there was one role that I would do anything to just get a shot at, get a crack at, you got to make this happen. So we literally devised a scheme where, I was at school in Utah. I was doing my film stuff there, making little short student films. My buddy was working as a production assistant in LA. So keep this in mind, a production assistant. He gets on the phone and literally starts making calls pretending he's a booking agent or a talent agent, right? He comes with this whole like alter ego, this like fake name, like I'm such and such from such and such agency. This guy was fearless. My buddy Danny. And Danny starts calling around. He calls every place, and he's got a couple people he knows that work on the Fox lot, and he just starts hounding them. Hey, who's running casting over there? Who do I need to get? Who do I need to talk to get? So this guy, my friend Danny, still one of my closest friends today, is he pounds the pavement on my behalf to try to get me an in and find the pathway in. So he finally gets a guy who is like probably the assistant to the executive in charge of casting for the studio, for Fox Studio. So it wasn't Lucasfilm, right? But it was 20th Century Fox, which was still 20th Century Fox back then. It wasn't owned by Disney or anything. He literally is like, Doug, he calls me up and goes, Doug, get on a plane next weekend. You've got a spot. It's a 10-minute or 15-minute interview with the assistant to the head of casting at Fox. I'm like, done. I'm on the plane. I go out there and they've got some sides, not from the movie. They're just some general, really probably from some bad teen show they, had been canceled or something, but they just had me read for this guy, this assistant. And then, that was it. It was like a 15-minute interview. I leave. Like a week later or 2 weeks later, I get another call from my buddy, Doug, can you get on a plane back down here again? Like they actually called you. Yeah. They're like, dude, they're going to have you actually meet with the Fox casting guy. And so I fly down again. So my second trip, I go down, meet with the Fox casting guy. They don't give you any feedback. We just talk. I read some sides for him. Again, not from the movie, just some general random things. And they're like, okay. So I leave. Like a month goes by, something like that. I don't know. We don't know. I get a call from a buddy. He's like freaking out on the phone. He's like, Doug, you've got to get down here again on such and such date. I've got you. They called back. They want you to meet with Robin Gurland. So
the casting director for the film.
Yeah. Yes. So I made it through the 2 tiers of Fox executives who then passed me on to Robin, who was George's casting director for the prequel films. So, so I should back up. What part of the scheme for this was like, literally like we put together headshots. We were like, dude, okay, how do I make myself look like half Anakin and half, Luke. Like, I've got more Luke going. So, I mean, we were studying like Jake Lloyd's haircut at the end of Phantom Menace. And
if
like,
only they put that much thought into it.
I mean, it's hilarious. I'll have to dig up we created black and white headshots, like super professional. I mean, that's what got me in the door was like, they're like, oh, dang, this kid actually kind of looks like he could be related to this guy, like, because that was our whole pitch. Hey, this guy looks like a young Mark Hamill. I mean, I know, 30 years later, I don't have much of that now, but back in the day, clean shaven, I had, whatever. It worked and it got me in the door. And so I fly down and I go to, it was I forget. It was on Sunset Strip. It was not the Beverly Hills Hotel. It was, I don't think it's even there. I think it's been demolished now. I've got to remember. But anyway, it'll come back to me at some point. But there was a hotel, and that's where she was holed up and Robin was. And, I had a 15-minute meeting with her, and I just walked in. It was just a conversation. That's all she was doing. We just had a little chat. We talked about what work I'd done. I talked to her about what school projects I was working on. Talked to her all about my excitement for, I didn't try to go too nerdy or anything. I tried to play it cool.
Right.
Because I was like, I just tried to play it very cool. And we had a really nice chat. She kept me there about 5 minutes extras. I'm like, well, that's a good sign, right? She kept me over the time we had. We just chatted about the business in general, and then she let me go and never heard anything ever again.
Oh, not even a no, which I know that's how it goes.
No, I know. Yeah.
Little do you know that just prior to you walking in, she met a young man who was on a teen drama called Higher Ground. And
oh, dude, I stalked Hayden Christensen once they made the announcement. I was obsessed. I was trying to, what's this Higher Ground thing? And where can I see some clips? And what this kid's got, what's this guy got that I don't have? Come on.
Yeah. We're the only people that watch this show. We're Star Wars fans. Yeah. So we've got it narrowed down to Hayden Christensen, Ryan Phillippe, Doug Heder, and Leonardo DiCaprio. And just this week, it was announced that Charlie Hunnam was also in the running for Anakin Skywalker. So
would have had Australian Anakin.
Australian Anakin. Yeah. So wow, what could have been? We could have been talking to the once and future Anakin Skywalker. Okay, so let's get back to the question. The question is, we're going to rephrase it because you want to be an actor in this scenario. So, Doug, there's a new Star Wars movie. George Lucas is directing. You're the lead.
You're Anakin.
That's right, Jimmy Mack. You have been recast as Anakin Skywalker. What would you like to hear George the Maker say to you as he says, cut on your final scene?
Yeah. I think what I'd want to hear from him is just, knowing George, knowing what little he does say, to the actors. I just wanted to hear him say, all right, everybody, good job. See you later. And then I'd wanted to have him pull me. I would hope that he would pull me aside and say, let's go grab dinner. Let's go grab dinner. Yeah. Like if he invites me if he wants to see me again after the movie's done, then it's like, okay, fine. We're good. Like if he never wants to see you again, then
I'm not going to say the answer, but the greatest answer we ever got to this question was by Jason Mewes of Jay and Silent Bob thing. Look it up. Yeah. We've got it in the archives. I'm not going to give the
yeah. It's what you would expect from him, though. Yeah.
Yes, but it's kind of like let's go have dinner, but kind
of what you had to do after dinner sometimes.
Right.
Dinner went really well.
All right, John. Without any further ado, obviously we're talking about you being the star in a Star Wars movie. George Lucas is back. It's his first time back directing a Star Wars movie since Revenge of the Sith. What would you like him? I assume directors will sometimes say things to you after I created this scenario with no knowledge of what happens on film sets. So what would you like for him to say to you after he says cut on your last scene?
You're going to eat your tots?
Okay, we might have a new winner of the best answer.
Those are looking really good. Yeah, those are looking real good.
He just kind of picks him off and walks away.
Yeah.
Puts him in his pocket.
I was like, okay, he's a fan. He's hungry. Seems right in character with him.
I mean, all of the above. That would be an amazing experience. Well, this has been an amazing experience. Truly, thank you both so much for taking the time out on around the holidays and hanging with us for as long as you did. It really was. And John, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you. And best of luck in all your future endeavors. Is there anything new that's in the works? Anything that you'd like for Rebel Force Radio listeners to know about?
I'm certainly not showing up in any Star Wars movies as of now that I know of. There's, I got a couple movies in the can that are on the horizon, some independent films. So, we'll see what happens when those come out. And for those hanging out in the Utah, Sundance area, Sundance is doing a 20-year anniversary screening and get together, kind of a celebration of Napoleon Dynamite this next month.
Oh, that's cool. Is that something that the public can buy tickets for, or is that a closed kind of industry thing?
I have no idea. I mean, I think it's for the public as well.
Okay.
But tickets are probably going to, it's, one screening we're doing there on the 24th, I believe it is, of January. So, yeah.
All right.
Usually those tickets go up like the day of at film festivals like Sundance. Yeah. And so you have to jump on the app. And
there's going to be a lot of season ticket holders who probably get in first. So, yeah.
Oh, that's while the festival's going on, they're going to be holding it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And Doug, thank you for arranging this. And also, most importantly, all your years of loyal and dedicated listenership. It was really humbling to hear some of the conversation prior to recording of, being there back in 2006 when we started podcasting. And then when we started this show, and there was sort of this drought for you as we were trying to find us, and then later hooked up with us. So it's awesome. And thank you so much for the support.
Well, I thank you guys for all the many, many, many hours of just fun, banter, and enthusiasm. I mean, there's a lot that's easy to get negative about in the Star Wars franchise, but you guys always put a great positive. It's my happy place with the Star Wars universe, and it has been for, like I said, almost 20 years. And you guys have just been awesome, and I feel like your family. And I'm just meeting you for the first time tonight, and yet I feel like I've known you because I've been listening to you for so long. And my kids will get a huge kick out of this tonight, and they're fans. I mean, my 20-year-old daughter, who's living in Europe right now, I mean, she grew up on these podcasts, and she's as big of a fan, and this is part of her childhood as much as all the rest. So thank you guys.
Well,
yeah,
that means a lot.
That's great.
I can't wait to tell you guys the same thing in 20 years from now. I'll start.
We'll be here, brother. We'll be here.
We'll probably have to start committing a little bit more time on the show to the made-for-TV Ewok films.
Yes.
That will probably be the key to your heart, I think.
Yeah.
If you want to do an episode like you guys did a holiday special episode where you talk about the holiday special, if you want to do an Ewoks adventure episode and have fun with that, I mean, John, myself, Dan, I mean, the three of, I mean,
those movies.
No more loyalists to those films. We loved the Ewok adventures. So I mean, that was our Star Wars for the better part of the 80s.
All right, making a note of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks,
Be careful
gentlemen.
what you wish for.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your families. Take care, all right? And we'll catch you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
See you
Have
guys.
a great one. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Your source for the Force.
Back when Annie and I were dating, we came to a crossroads in our relationship. We were this close to parting ways.
What happened?
Well, as you may know, I'm a huge fan of the original Star Wars saga. But Annie likes the prequels better.
That's right. Ouch.
Yeah, seriously, I know. So naturally, I had to wonder, could I be with someone who thinks so differently from me than on something so important?
Yeah. What'd you end up doing?
Well, in the end, I looked at her, thought to myself, man, she's smoking hot, super smart, and for some odd reason into me. So I didn't want to screw that up, so I proposed to her the next day. Rest is history. Plus, we both equally hate the new films.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, well, that is a wrap here on 2023 here on Rebel Force Radio, our final show for RFR. Cannot thank Doug and John enough for spending some time with us as they did, especially during the holidays. So great and a lot of fun, and that brotherly chemistry, Jim, that you were counting on definitely came through with those two.
Oh, yeah. Loud and clear. I have this mental picture of Doug grabbing John by the throat and holding him up against the wall when he returned from college on his first break because Doug had the Millennium Falcon in his room. I know, listen, me and Billy Mack as adults argued over ownership of our own Millennium Falcon for years.
Is that still a point of controversy between the two of you, or has there been a declared owner? Because I think you both claim it.
It's in my basement.
Okay. Well, it was awesome. And thanks to those guys. Patreon.com, as we mentioned earlier, is a great way to get more Rebel Force Radio in your life. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio, or go to rebelforceradio.com, the official website. Click on the Patreon banner in the right rail, and you will find your gateway to a lot more RFR, including the weekly full show videos. So the show you're listening to right now, you could be watching, including our interview with John and Doug. Exclusive podcasts that you can't get anywhere else, including the Q&A, the Babu Freaks, RPG, and more. And it is truly the best community of Star Wars fans you'd ever want to find and ever hang out in. So check it out.
Ad-free shows.
Ad-free shows. So no ads. Also, when we do our call-in shows, like the after shows, Patreon members get put to the front of the line. Tyler Page screens those, and he makes sure that the Patreon callers, their voice or that their calls get answered. And a lot of times, well, at least lately, we've been doing some exclusive live streams to the Patreon audience. So we're doing actual RFR, weekly RFR, but with calls like we did last week. And the only way to participate in those is to become a member of Rebel Force Radio Patreon supporters. YouTube, another place to get more RFR. We talked about in that Cantina interview, Jason Mewes. I'm pretty sure that clip is over on the YouTube channel.
It is, and unbeeped.
Okay. All right, the full unedited answer to the Yoda Questionnaire from Jason Mewes of Jay and Silent Bob fame over there.
Even I curse in that one.
Well, how can you not with Jason?
Right.
I mean, how can you not? That's just one of the many classic moments from RFR history you'll find over there on YouTube. So please subscribe, like, and comment today. Follow us on our Instagram, our Facebook, over on X, at RFR Rebel Force, and at Rebel Force Radio, the website for all things and everything, Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. But above all, if you really want to help us out, do what you're doing now. Just continue to listen. Continue to listen to Rebel Force Radio and recommend RFR to the Star Wars fan in your life. With the holidays, you're going to be around your family, and of course, you're going to be talking about the wars, and you're going to find that one cousin that has never listened to a podcast before. You go, no, check it, and you grab their phone, and you open up Apple Podcasts for the very first time, and you click continue, and then you search for Rebel Force Radio, and you subscribe right there on their phone, and you hand it
We're
back to
just
them.
punching Star Wars, and we show up. We're the first thing to pop up, and it's been
Right,
that way
or
on
just-
iTunes for 15 years.
Or just punching Star Wars. That's all you got to do. All you got to do. So if they can't do it for them over the holidays. Please subscribe if you can. Leave a review if you're able. Love to have the reviews. We read them all. Just one rule, please.
Make them good.
And that's it. We'll see you next year, 2024, January 12th. RFR will be back. And who knows what we're going to get. But one thing is for sure, we're going to get a whole new year of Star Wars content. We're talking Bad Batch Season 3, Acolyte. We're talking Skeleton Crew, and maybe even Andor. In addition to, I tell you, that Season 2 of what was it? Tales of the Jedi. I'm really looking forward to that. Very scant details. I don't know who we're going to be treated to in terms of who we're going to follow. The last one was Dooku and Ahsoka with a little bit of Qui-Gon thrown in there.
Yaddle.
And Yaddle. So who knows what we'll get this year. But anyway, one thing you do know for sure, RFR will be covering it, and we'll be inviting you along for the ride on our after shows. So also, huge thank you to everybody listening. Have the happiest of holidays. Merry Christmas. Have a wonderful New Year. Don't forget to blow up the Death Star at midnight.
Oh, yeah.
Details will be posted.
Don't forget that tradition.
RebelForceRadio.com. Just search for it. We've also got YouTube videos on that, too. So check it out. That's a Jimmy Mac original. Often imitated, but never duplicated. The RFR Jimmy Mac Death Star blow up.
It kicked off a trend, though, of people taking their favorite movies and timing them out to specific moments. I've heard everything from the Thanos snap in the Avengers to when the bad guy from Die Hard falls off the building or whatever.
Oh, my God. Yeah, right.
Hans Gruber. Hans
Gruber. Alan Rickman.
I've heard so many things, maybe you could cue it up to when, like, Rocky punches out Clubber Lang, or I don't know. You come up with your own, but to me, nothing is more exciting than blowing up the Death Star at midnight. Nothing compares to that. They drop the ball in Times Square, New York City. We blow up that ball here on RFR. So it's our family tradition here. Make it your family tradition as well.
All right. Well, we'll see you in the new year. So all the best to everybody. We love you all so much. Thank you so very much for being with us. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy MacIger.
I don't know where we go. I don't know where we go.
That's how I'm ending the year. That's it. That's it. I'm done. Mic off.
And remember,
may the Force be with you this Christmas and always.